Purushottamapurusham Chakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Bhanu Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhantam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Hare, don't disturb me.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Wrong was that.
Hare Rama,
Is that about the name? This is the form.
Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Same name, no. But because it is orientation. Just take this link and test whether you can come in. See whether you can come in by this.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavan
working. Link to Bhakti Shastri orientation. We'll work on that. Come inside.
Shadaitam Savadhutam
Hare Krishna. Only 25 people are there, I don't know.
Krishna
Send a reminder.
Chaitanya
Only 10 people, 10 minutes remaining.
Sri
Working?
Krishna Padam Sadhana Lalita Sri Vishakha Nikanshta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Can you send me the short link, the long link, and the code and the password? I can send for him.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
अरे डेस्कटॉप में सेव कर दो.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
अरे urgent, he's asking for that.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
I still don't have the address. I gave them. Can you keep watching?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Where are the
Hare
people, yeah?
Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Write a message to
Hare
people, Maharaj.
Hare,
Let me
Hare
come
Rama,
again.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Can you keep
Hare
it?
Rama, Hare Rama,
Somebody has to be,
Rama Rama, Hare
Yeah,
Hare,
you have to look, no, he might be
Hare
writing
Krishna,
something.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Better we do live
Hare
kirtan.
Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Better.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Shidra, we can have one garland, proper garland. So different proper garland. Start singing.
Namayom Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namini namaste saraswate deve gauravani pracharini nirvishesha shunyavadi pasyasyadeshatarini jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Maharaj. First let him come on screen. Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
So we should begin?
Yes. Just small garland. Yes, Maharaj. I can speak little about you. And I have great pleasure to today introduce for all of you Bhanu Maharaj. He's very lovingly knows His Holiness Bhanu Maharaj. He was born in Canada and he holds a BA in Oriental Fine Arts. And then he studied in University of British Columbia. He joined ISKCON movement in 1970. We have a celebration. There's a 50 years of his great service to Srila Prabhupada. 1971, he was initiated by Srila Prabhupada. He took sannyasa in 1984. He was personally instructed by Srila Prabhupada in the art of deity worship, and he has become an authority on this topic. And he has been a GBC member since 2003. ISKCON is governed by what is known as GBC. He is a GBC member since 2003. He is actually in charge of whole South India, where we are situated. And he's also co-GBC for Japan. And he's the regional secretary for South India in 1986. And if you go to Chennai, there is a beautiful temple, and it was all done under his direction. He's a scholar in Sanskrit, Bengali, and various languages. And he has many books. He has translated Gaudiya Vaishnava books, 6 more titles in progress. And the Bhagavad Gita issue, Srimad Bhagavatam, and his contribution is amazing. And he has a wonderful presentation of various topics like karma, reincarnation, yoga, Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, he visited us in 2014, and it was a great visit, and all of us benefited a lot. In fact, we were amazed by his wonderful classes which he took for the youth in the colleges. Yes, Maharaj, it's a great privilege to have you here in Mangalore after 7 years.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivinoda Namaste Saraswati Nirvishesha Shrindivadi Paschat Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama. So the subject today is advancement in Krishna consciousness, advancement in emotional service. Everybody wants to advance, and even in the material world, and we see people, courses, educated, go to school in order to advance. So we measure that advancement and material education, then measure the advancement by giving you tests. And then you go from standard 1 to standard 2, etc. And then if you pass out of lower and higher schools, then you go to college, then you can get a master's degree or a PhD, etc. And then we consider that you advanced or having more knowledge in a particular field. So that is in the material world, that works okay. But even there, we see that in spite of having a nice degree or whatever, a person they may be advanced in knowledge in a certain field, but they may not be advanced as a person, or in terms of character, or in terms of experience. So we can to some degree measure things by giving tests and memorizing things, etc., as they do in academics, but that's not ultimately a good standard to follow. But that it always doesn't work in the material world to equate degrees, etc., with one's advancement. So this is also applied to spiritual life. You cannot measure your advancement by the number of degrees you got. Of course, we do have some degrees in knowledge, as in colleges and whatever, so you can get a Bhakti Shastra degree or whatever from ISKCON and Vedanta or Bhakti Vaibhava, etc. You get various degrees. So that measures our spiritual knowledge, how much we know Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, nectar, devotion, So in that way, we can measure something. But that again does not really measure ultimately our spiritual advancement. Certainly, knowledge is a factor in advancement, but not the only factor. So, therefore, we do have to
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, your network is a little frozen now.
Sindhu.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Hare Krishna. We need a translation for this one.
No, no, Maharaj. We told them they will hear you.
I think my connection's a little unstable. I may have to
Yeah.
turn on video. So,
Yes, Maharaj. You can
yeah.
continue.
The advancement is they're categorized to 3 stages: sadhana, bhava, and prema. The latter two, from our point of view, are quite advanced, because in bhava you can see Krishna, and in prema one develops full rasa with. So these are very advanced stages. And before that, we got the stage of sadhana, which means the practice stage. So for us, this is the stage that we are at. We start with faith and we advance to practicing. And even that has stages also, which are outlined in the Nectar of Devotion. So we have Shraddha, and then we have the beginning of Bhakti called Vajrana Kriya. Then we have Anartana Vritti, removing the various impediments and bad desires and obstacles, etc., in devotional service. And then we have Nishtha, steadiness in devotional service, where the impurities do not cause great disturbance. Then we have Ruchi, the taste for bhakti increases prominently, and of course material desires are minimal. And then Asakti, which is great attachment to the devotional processes and to Krishna. And that is where sadhana is. And then after that we get bhava, prema, realization, full realization. So these are the stages which one goes through in the process of the service. And each of these can also be analyzed and described according to the symptoms. And that actually has been done in one work by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, that is Madhurya Kadambini. So there he analyzes each stage from faith to Vajrana Kriya, Nartana Vritti, to Nishtha, Ruchya. So from that, then we can realize some of the symptoms of those different stages. And then we can, if we can recognize the symptoms in us, we can locate ourselves at a certain stage. So as I said, it's not like by the amount of verses you know, etc. It is by certain symptoms in our practice of bhakti and what anarthas are appearing that we can judge which stage we're at in devotional service. So in this way, it becomes a little more easier to identify if we're progressing, and then how much we're progressing. So that work, if you want to know the various stages, details, it's quite an interesting analysis of Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. So the main point is to understand that we cannot quantify the progress or the stages based upon material means like examinations, etc. It's in terms of how much you're attracted to Krishna and how much you're not attracted to material enjoyment. So that's the basic standard in advance. So we have, in relation to that, an example given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that is the example of a plant, how a plant grows. So I mentioned that we try to advance in life, and that we have various means by which we can measure that advancement. So we can take the example of a plant. We start with a seed. And if we treat the seed in a proper way, sprout. And then we have to take care of it, and the sprout will begin to grow. If first it develops 2 leaves. Then we cultivate it more favorably, and it develops more leaves. And it keeps growing, it gets bigger and bigger. Eventually, it gets fruit or flowers, and then finally fruit. So the fruit is the final result of the tree, the plant, the seed. So we plant a mango seed, and eventually we end up with a mango fruit. So that is the advancement or the progress that we get there. So the same with bhakti. We plant the seed of bhakti, and the seed is planted in the jiva. If the jiva is favorable, just as if you plant a seed on earth which is all salty and got all the no minerals in it, it will not grow properly. May not even sprout. Dry or too wet, it won't even sprout. So the seed of bhakti has to be planted in the jiva who has favorable soil. So then it sprouts. So the favorable field is actually faith or shraddha. We have to have a genuine conviction in the jiva of the existence of Krishna and devotion. When that faith is there within the jiva, and then that seed of bhakti can get planted. So, what is that seed that gets planted? What happens? It sprouts. So this means that when we have that faith, and then we get the first information about bhakti, then we do some activity. That's our bhakti. Seed sprouts. This we call the bhajana kriya, the activities of devotion. So based on faith, we do activities of devotion, such as hearing the scriptures or chanting the holy name, associating with the devotee, worshiping the deity. All of these are the different activities we engage in. So this is the first stage. So this is like the plant sprouting and beginning to grow. So in this process, it has to keep growing properly. How do we help it to grow properly? Well, with a seed, we have to have the proper conditions, such as the proper soil, proper wetness, too wet, we have to have sunlight, etc. And then we have to begin to cultivate the plant, make sure the soil is proper, pull out the weeds, make sure the water is coming regularly, make sure there's enough sunlight, but not too much sunlight, etc. So this is all the cultivation of bhakti. We have the activities, and we have to do them in a certain way so that they flourish. So in this way, the bhakti plant grows. So of course, who does the cultivating and taking care of it? As the gardener. So we are responsible for cultivating this seed of bhakti plant and making the plant grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So the bhakti, which is in the jiva, begins to grow. That means the devotion, the love for Krishna begins, or affection for Krishna begins to gradually increase and increase. Simultaneously, the attraction for material endeavors, material enjoyment decreases. This is the nature of bhakti. The more we become attracted to Krishna and trying to serve Krishna, the more our attraction to getting material enjoyment for ourselves will decrease. So these two things happen simultaneously. So this is called anartha nivritti, removing or destroying the unwanted material desires and attachments. So as the plant grows, the anarthas decrease and decrease. If we cultivate properly, then this will happen. And we'll come to a certain stage called nishtha, which means steadiness. So before this, it is called unsteady. So that means that our material desires will interfere with our devotional desires and cause us to do less bhakti and more material activity. But if we continue the bhakti and this anartha nivritti takes place, then we will come to nishtha, where the material desires are less and the spiritual desires to cultivate Krishna consciousness are more. So we can be steady because the majority, the strength of the desires for serving Krishna are more than the strength of the desires to serve Maya. So this is called the stage of nishtha. So this is a favorable stage. If we reach this stage, then very, very nice. We can steadily perform our sadhana. I guess nishtha means steady. So definitely the anarthas are not all gone, but at least the bhakti is strong enough that those anarthas do not interfere with our cultivation. And if we continue that bhakti, the plant grows and the attraction to increases. So the stage where this becomes quite prominent is called ruchi, which means taste. So at that stage, we have a nice taste for serving Krishna, chanting his name, worshiping the deity, etc. And our taste for material things is much, much less. So we have no problem in very actively serving. And if we continue like that, then the material attractions become even less and become more attracted to doing the activities for Krishna. And we develop more attraction with Krishna. This is called asakti state, or attachment state. So there is no problem for us in performing our devotional activities at that stage. Whatever material desires remain are very small or very weak, and they don't cause an impediment for us. And from there, then if the attraction to Krishna is a little stronger, then even though the anarthas are not completely gone, Krishna will appear before the devotee. We'll be able to actually see Krishna, even though it is momentary. We get a chance to see Krishna. So that is called the bhava stage. In the bhava stage, we do not give up the activities. Now, if you graduate from college, you give up your studies. No more textbooks, no more study. And then you do your job or whatever. Right? But with bhakti, when we get bhava and then we get prema, we do not give up the activity. We continue. So we continue to worship Krishna. We continue to chant his name. You continue to hear the Bhagavatam. The activities continue, but very spontaneously, with great joy. And we're always experiencing bliss in directly serving. So that is the premise. That is like the fruit of the tree. We've got the result, and we can taste. Just as you grow the mango tree, and finally, after many years, you get the fruit. Then you pick the fruit after it is ripened, and you taste the sweetness. And before that, you get the flowers, which is like bhava stage. Before that, you only have leaves. But to get to the bhava and prema, we have to cultivate that plant very properly. So if we neglect the cultivation, then the plant will not grow properly. That means you have to be an expert gardener. Some people, of course, are very talented at gardening, and they can grow plants, and they grow very nicely, and then they'll get lots of flowers, they get nice vegetables, they get nice fruit, etc. Other people, they cultivate, and they get hardly anything or nothing at all. Just maybe a few dried up eggplants, or a few withered leaves of spinach or something like that. They don't get much. So they're not very good farmers. So we have to be very expert at cultivating the plant of bhakti. Okay? And if we're not attentive, then we will not get the proper fruit. We will not get the proper flowers. We will not get the proper leaves. Therefore, we have to be attentive in our cultivation of that plant. And then we will get the proper, the advancement of service. In terms of leaves, the leaves are just the first two leaves here are certain symptoms that manifest even in sadhana stage. So when you do sadhana, then two things should happen. If they don't happen, that means you're not cultivating the plant and the two leaves are not growing up. So two leaves are destruction of klesha, suffering, and subodha, bestowal of auspicious. So this means that all the bad anarthas and desires and karmas, etc., get destroyed. And the good things manifest, wonderful qualities, wonderful devotional qualities begin to manifest in relation to. So these two things should happen as a result of our cultivation of devotional service. So we can say these are the characteristics by which we recognize that some advancement is going on. So suffering is reduced and manifestation of good qualities. If they do not happen, that means we're not performing the devotional activities. So that is like the inattentive gardener, and he's growing the plant, but the leaves don't sprout properly. Maybe the plant grows crooked. Plant whole leaves are not nourished; they're all yellow, full of spots or whatever. Insects eat up the leaves, etc. So we have to be attentive to cultivate properly, so you can get the first two leaves. And if we're attentive, then we'll get the flowers and ultimately the fruit. As with gardening, of course, you need some knowledge. So certain plants require certain amounts of water, others require less water. Some require more sunlight, some less sunlight, etc. So we have to have knowledge in devotional service also on what to do and how to do. And we'll get that knowledge from the scripture and from other how to practice properly. So in cultivating, yes, we have to cultivate nicely. And then there's some problems that may occur. So one is that in the field, if we're not attentive, weeds will grow up. And then you have to pull out the weeds, otherwise the plant does not grow properly. If we allow all the weeds to grow, the weeds may get bigger than the plant, and they will take all the nourishment from the soil. and the plant will get strangled, so to speak. It will not grow very healthy. So if we allow some anarthas to grow up, some bad habits to grow up, and we make no attempt to limit them in any way, then these are like weeds, and they will inhibit the growth of bhakti. So we cultivate bhakti as the main process, but we also have to be aware of certain bad habits which are detrimental to the cultivation of bhakti. So we have to be aware of such things as envy, pride, attachment to material objects, greed, etc. Desire for position, cheating propensity. These are some of the things we have to avoid. They are not favorable in our devotional cultivation. Certainly, of course, by cultivating bhakti, these things will disappear. But if we make no attempt to in any way control them, then it is very difficult for them to disappear. If we don't want to get rid of our bad habits, then even if we do bhakti, it is difficult to get rid of bad habits. So we must have a good design. So we have to pull out these weeds. And we may not be aware they're weeds. There is a certain type of grass that grows in the shamgats, which means black, black grass. But it looks just like rice. So you can grow your rice field and plant your rice seeds and they'll grow up. But then this weed will also grow up and it looks exactly like the rice. And we'll start caring for those weeds and thinking they're rice because the leaves look very similar. And then only when you harvest the crop, instead of getting rice as the crop, we get wheat as the crop with no rice. So it's a wasted effort. So we have to recognize the weed also. What are the weeds in devotional service? And we have to then uproot them, like the gardener will uproot the shamgach weed. So, we have to be very careful to see what is bhakti and what is not bhakti. So sometimes people will perform devotional service, and then we get certain material results. So maybe we get followers, we get money, maybe we get gifts, maybe we get land. They will think, oh, I'm successful in bhakti. Yes, it's related to bhakti. But if we get attached to those things for ourselves, then they become weeds. And we may equate them with bhakti, but actually they're weeds in devotional service, and they don't help us advance bhakti. So we have to be careful that the weeds do not grow up. So we have to be careful to recognize what is bhakti and what is not bhakti, or if we're using things in devotional service of yukta vairagya, that we don't become attached to them for our own purposes. So we have to be aware of that. So that's one thing we have to do when we're growing the plant. Be aware of the weeds. The other, of course, is cultivation. We have to know what is the proper amount of water, what is the proper sunlight, etc. So we have to know how to cultivate what is favorable for bhakti to grow. And then there is another problem, and that is in India, at least, in some parts of India, are wild elephants. And if you're in a village and you're growing your crops, sometimes the wild elephants will come along and rip everything up, and they'll probably eat the bananas, eat the crops, and then run away. Then nothing is left. So our plant of bhakti also has a mad elephant around there. And we have to be careful that he doesn't come close to your plant. So the mad elephant, mad elephant's even worse than the regular elephant, because the mad elephant is really wild, and he will destroy everything. So the mad elephant is considered to be aparad or offense, and particularly the offense against the devotee. So if we offend the devotees, then the mad elephant comes along and destroys the plant of bhakti, or severely damages that plant of bhakti, so it cannot grow properly. Okay? So the message we learn is we have to avoid the offenses, particularly the offenses to the name of the Lord, Amapara. So there are 10 offenses, and you should learn those offenses. But one of the most dangerous offenses, destructive offenses, is the first one, sadhuninda, or the offense against the devotee of the Lord, or criticism of the devotee. So this will create a great disturbance to the progress of devotional service, and may even destroy it if the offense is very, very serious. So we have to avoid the. Therefore, we do need some knowledge. We have to know what is an offense, what is not offense, what are the anarthas, what is favorable for bhakti, what is unfavorable for bhakti. And then if we perform bhakti with these safeguards, then the plant will grow nicely. Before we reach nishtha, steadiness, there's unsteadiness. If there's unsteadiness, definitely the advancement is a little slow. Once we do steady bhakti at nishtha, then the advancement can go quite steadily. Before that, there can be all sorts of disturbances. So we should strive to come to the stage of nishtha, or steadiness, and this will help us do our devotional properly. So we should quickly come to that stage. So we can do that by, of course, avoiding the offenses, understanding some unfavorable things, and limit the anarthas, etc., so they don't control, and learn about what is favorable for devotional development, cultivate devotee. Then quickly we can get from anartha vritti stage to the nishtha stage, and then we can comfortably practice our. So in this way, we can advance in the service. In the nectar, in the Madhurya Kadamba, there, Krishna Chakravarti mentions some of the symptoms of anishita, not being steady. So one of them is usahama, which means literally enthusiasm, but this means false enthusiasm. So we may be proud that we've begun this process, but it is compared to a small child when he is 5 years old. And when he's 5 years old, then the parents will take him to school, and then we get introduced to the teacher. The teacher sits him down, and he'll give him this lesson. So he'll teach him the first letter, how would it sound, and how to write the first letter. So then the student goes home, and then he's very proud. I know something, and then he'll think, I know everything. So he knows he knows how to write but he's very proud. So this is like the first beginning devotional service. He may feel very proud that he knows everything, but he's just begun the process. So we should not be subject to that pride and think that everybody else is useless. I'm the only best person. So that is one anartha that may creep in at the beginning of service. Another is struggle. So the material desires are strong. The desire for bhakti is there, but it's not as strong. So there will be a constant struggle to perform any devotional. Instead of doing that, we'll think, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to go out and play, I want to go watch television, I want to go to a movie, want to gossip with some friends, instead of doing some devotional. So there's a struggle going on, and sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. So that struggle is going on also in the stage of anartha nivritti before we get to the stage. That is a sign of unsteadiness. We have to struggle a lot. Another symptom, of course, is inability to follow a certain standard called niyama akshama. Inability to follow the rules we've set up. So we say I'll chant 4 rounds, but we can never chant 4 rounds. Chant 8 rounds, we never chant 8 rounds. Chant 16 rounds, we cannot chant 16 rounds. Every time we make a vow, we cannot fulfill the vow because we get distracted by material. So inability to follow the vow is a problem or a sin. Of course, we cannot set unrealistic goals. Set a realistic goal and try to fulfill that. But once we set the vow, we should be steady at that and fulfill it as much as we can. We cannot do that. We keep making vows and breaking the vows, and this is a sign of unsteadiness. Another symptom, of course, is speculation. Instead of concentrating on practically doing our devotional activities with an idea of becoming steady, we will speculate about some great future and devotional service where we are very famous or very renounced or whatever. So we shouldn't speculate about our future in devotional service. We should concentrate on the immediate goals, steady in our service. Another symptom of the anishtha state is to get attracted to the assets that come or privileges that come with bhakti. So when we perform devotional service, we may get a following, we may get fame, we may get a position, etc. And if we enjoy those things for ourselves, then these become obstacles in our service. So we have to be very, very careful at the beginning stages. We don't be attracted to those things. So these are some of the symptoms of anishtha state. If we get association and we can advance nicely and quickly, we can nishtha, where we can get rid of all of these things. And then we will have no problem in the devotional service. We do have to aim at least to come to the state of nishtha, and we can advance steadily. So in this way, we perform our devotional activities, and to some degree, we can recognize our own advancement by how much we're attracted to Maya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, our acharyas, every Ekadasi, you should try to measure your advancement. See how much we're attached to Krishna, how much we're attached to material. So periodically, we do have to be introspective and just see how much we are advancing. And if it's not satisfactory, then we have to consult some other devotees to see what the problem is. Sometimes we cannot see what the problem is, but someone from outside can see. And particularly if they do have some experience in devotional service and some knowledge of scripture, then they can also understand if they're what the particular problem is. So we can advance nicely in association of devotees who do have some knowledge that can give us some good counsel. Okay, anyway, that's, I suppose, ask questions if you want. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. It was very, very illuminating. We thank you very much. I'll now like to ask people who they have questions, they can raise their hand. Hare Krishna. Yes, Shankar, kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Um, uh, See, my question was, I couldn't really hear well about, he was just talking about something about aparadha.
You could not understand what is aparadha?
Oh,
No,
aparadha.
he was just correlating with some,
Elephant.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So aparad means offense. There are different types of offenses. We have
Okay.
offenses against the deity called seva aparads, like going into the temple with shoes on or touching the deity when you're unclean, etc. Then we have other types of offenses called nam aparads. These are more serious. Uh, and there's 10 of those. The first one's called sadhu ninda, or criticizing the devotees.
Okay.
Another one is disrespecting the guru. And so these are called Vaishnava aparads. Then we have, of course, ones related to thinking that Krishna is a devata, God supreme, thinking that chanting the holy name is a material pious activity for going to Svarga Loka, things like this. So we have 10 aparads there, or offenses, and they're all very damaging to devotional service, but particularly the offense against the devotees, because the devotees are the main cause of advance. You offend the devotees, we cannot advance. So just like if we want to garden, then we have to consult some gardeners. But if we offend all the gardeners, tell them you're all nonsense, you don't know anything, then we don't know anything, and we can't cultivate our plants. So the mad elephant is it's called the mad elephant because it actually destroy the bhakti, just as the mad elephant will come into the village and start ripping everything up without you can't say stop, please, that elephant, stop. It won't listen. So the mad elephant offense is this Vaishnava aparad. Very quickly it can start weakening and almost destroy the bhakti, or even destroy it completely. So we have to be careful of that offense particularly.
Okay.
Thank you.
This mad elephant, what are we relating to? Mad elephant as the person who is doing an offense?
Yeah.
Or it is an influence coming?
A bad elephant offense is that we criticize the Vaishnavas.
Okay. Okay. Whoever who is criticizing Vaishnavas are called mad offense.
Yes.
Well, he's committing the mad elephant offense.
Mad elephant, sorry.
And therefore his bhakti gets destroyed, or at least harmed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for the insightful. I think there's a lot of weed and as well as mad elephant we need to really address. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shankarji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Shailaja.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Yeah, your volume is less, little louder.
Thank you. Am I audible now? Is it better now, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Thank you. Maharaj, I have two questions. One is that as and when we progress in Krishna consciousness, in terms of the bodily attachments, so should we give up or, kind of move away from our physical relationships like husband, wife, kids, father and mother and stuff? Second thing is, how does the karma, the material karma of a person, works on a person who is kind of chanting 16 rounds? I mean, it may not be a complete 100% surrender, it's not a pure devotee, but then for people who are trying to progress in Krishna consciousness, so does he have to still go through the karmic process of what he was meant to be in his destiny in this life, or how does it work? Can you please explain? Hare Krishna.
Well, first question is that about a family life and whatever, and how to give up those attachments. So If one is a family with children, etc., husband, wife, etc., we cannot immediately give them up. It's not socially responsible to do so. And at the same time, we can practice bhakti in the family as well as a renunciate, giving everything up. So it's a flexible process. So we can engage the whole family in devotional service if that is possible, and everybody can advance. This is we call gradual renunciation. So gradually, by practicing bhakti, then as one grows older and children grow up, then one can become more renounced. So maybe at that stage, after the children are grown up, one can take vanaprastha and retire and go and live in a holy dham like Vrindavan or Mayapur, whatever. And if the husband is very advanced, he can even take sannyas at a certain stage. But we don't encourage sudden renunciation of everything, because that will be not natural and it'll be unstable. We just limit our contact with material objects to what is necessary for raising the family, whatever, and we don't go overboard and try to go to extremes for maintaining family, etc. Second question about karma. So it's explained, Kleshagni, I mentioned the first leaf that grows up was destruction of suffering. Suffering is caused by karma. So bhakti destroys all the karma. And in fact, it may do so very quickly, even for persons who are not a devotee. Simply by chanting the name Vansi, name of Krishna or Narayan, one can destroy all karmas, past, present, and future. That is the strength of the holy name. So karmas can get destroyed quite easily, but it may not be apparent that they're destroyed. Only when you meet Yamaraj, you'll be aware of that. When he says, oh, you have no karmas. But before that, we may be going through our life with the same material body, the same sickness, and the same events happening or whatever. And we may think nothing has changed, but actually there is no karma. But there's an appearance because we do have a material body. So even if the karma is completely destroyed, then we do have some pattern that remains. On the other hand, some people may not destroy all their karmas even with the bhakti, because they've committed some offenses, namaparad. So if we commit the namaparads, then this will tend to slow the process of the destruction of the karma. We have some karmas still remaining because of some aparad.
How can we overcome that, Maharaj?
What, the aparads?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
of course, the performance of bhakti itself will eventually wipe out the aparads, provided we don't commit new aparads.
okay. And despite of taking to bhakti, why are some people still seem to be like facing challenges in the, not necessarily in the spiritual advancement, but in the material, world, maybe in terms
Well,
of
that, as I
health?
said, maybe they've done some aparads, and therefore, even though they do bhakti, the karmas are not all erased. That's one thing. The other is that if the karmas are erased, it may be a residual pattern that remains from something much worse could have happened, but some small pattern is remaining from a worse karma.
And there's another thing that I've come across that says when we take into Krishna consciousness, Krishna, gets involved into the horoscope of a devotee and tries to rearrange the karma. And is that true that the devotee doesn't have to really necessarily go through what he's destined to go through in this life? Is that real, Maharaj?
Well, some pattern remains, which is your pattern of karma. Just like Baladev Vijayabhusa compares it to a piece of silk cloth, and the silk cloth has no threads in it. And we can put it near a candle flame or a deepa, but not burn it, but get it very close to it. And it gets heated up. Doesn't burn. And when we take it away, it looks like it's the same silk piece of cloth. With all the threads are there, etc., same pattern, etc. But if we touch it, it just crumbles. The silk is being singed. It has the same pattern, but if you touch it, then it's not real. It's all gone, and the silk turns into powder. So for the devotee of the Lord, he may have destroyed all of his karmas, but there is an apparent pattern like the singed silk that remains as long as he has the body. So that pattern remains.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Shailaja Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Maharaj. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Gaurav.
Hare Krishna, sir. Hare Krishna, Bhanu Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for this wonderful class. My doubt is regarding the struggle that you mentioned, that how there's a struggle between the material desire and the spiritual desire, and how does one balance it? Number one. Number two, sometimes I do feel motivated to chant, but I would like to say that 99% of the times it's just that I feel that I have to do this duty and I have to somehow, just finish my rounds. So will that be counted as devotional service, or will it just be something like there's a word, no, it's called just chanting. I mean, just taking the names of the Lord.
Yeah, so this, yes, if we start with the faith, we do have a genuine belief, conviction in the existence of Krishna and devotional service and the goal, etc. Fine, that's the basis. So everything we do has what we call bhakti. If that's not faith, it's not there. We can do accidental chanting, as in the case of Ajabil said he named his son Narayana and he got some destruction of karmas that way. We don't call that bhakti. But when we have the faith and we do the bhakti, very good. And I was explaining that if we're unnishtha stage, unsteady stage, or anartha nivritti, before we get to nishtha or steadiness, then we'll have these problems. We'll get this struggle going on. And maybe we have inattention to the holy name, difficulty in completing our vow, etc. You call lethargy or whatever like that. So these things will manifest in the unsteady state. So the idea is we should come to the nishtha state where we can do all these activities nicely. We don't have so much to struggle with material energy, etc. So to get from the unsteady state to the steady state, from anishtha to nishtha state, that should be our first goal. And we do that by the steady practice of bhakti in association with devotees.
Okay, Maharaj. Yes. So practice and association are the only key. Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, sir.
Hare Krishna, Radhika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I have, one to start with, we are all born in India where we've probably, even before we are born, we would have heard the name of Krishna. But I just wanted to draw, and while we are still struggling, to improve in our path, can you just share your insights as to where did you hear our Krishna's name first, and what was your inspiration towards, our Krishna conscience?
How did I meet? Well, accidentally, I got a card that said Hare Krishna on it. That was when I was in Canada, but I didn't know what it was, so I didn't do anything with it. So at least I heard the syllables there. I saw the syllables printed on the card, though it was not printed properly. That was the first contact. Then in Japan, I happened to meet devotees of Krishna, distributing Back to Godhead magazines. And I purchased one of the magazines, and they invited me to one of their programs. Well, that's how I got introduced to it. Then I heard about Hare Krishna and the chanting process, and kirtan, japa, etc. So it's through the devotees and their preaching efforts that I learned about devotion and in practice based on that.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. And in Bhagavad Gita, I know there are 700 verses. Each are important and each conveys a message. But which one was very appealing to you? And what would you like to suggest among that as the best for us?
Oh, well, the kirtan is the most attractive aspect. I think for most people it is. somehow or other, they get attracted to the chanting process. So, of course, this is also the Yuga Dharma. So it is the main process for this Yuga. And it's the way in which we can advance most easily by doing the kirtan. So we have 64 items of devotional service, of which 5 are prominent, but of those 5, kirtan is considered the most powerful. So it's the most attractive for everybody. Even if they don't have faith, if people hear the name, eventually they can get faith. Once they get faith, then we can talk to them and preach to them.
Sure, Prabhu. Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Maharaj, you wanted to show the presentation. We didn't see.
What's that?
You wanted to show this presentation?
Can you see this now?
Yeah, no, we're finding it very beautiful.
So this is the Anishta Nishta. So we start with the faith, that's the conviction. Then we associate, we would want to learn something, so we ask some devotees, etc. That's the Sangha. Then we start practicing, and then we go through Anishta, unsteady, and we get to Nishta, or steady state. So in that unsteady state, then we have these things, false confidence, like the little kid that's saying, I know everything, when he knows one letter of the alphabet. Sporadic endeavor. But sometimes we're enthusiastic, sometimes we're not enthusiastic. This indecision. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I stay at the family life? Should I work out, become a Babaji, or go to Vrindavan, or this and that? That's a little bit speculative. Struggle with Maya. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Inability to uphold vows, niyama, kshama. So we struggle to maintain whatever we promise. And we may get attracted to the results of our bhakti, such as followers or whatever, position, etc. It's called Taranga Rangani, enjoying the waves. So we have to be careful about. Okay, any more questions?
Hare Krishna. Janaki Mataji.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Namaste, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Little louder, Mataji.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Namaste. My question is, like what another devotee just said, in India, we are born, in families which, where we are exposed to devotion and traditional values and bhakti and things like that, though we may not understand it in that perspective when we are young. Because I remember when I was a kid, my father was a member and a follower of ISKCON. That was in the mid-70s. And we used to have a lot of kirtans and all at home. So for me, it was more of fun those days. But as I grew up, one got to understand that in goodness and in not so good times, you look up to the Supreme to give you the strength to withstand everything that you're going through. And now, with everything that's happening around the world, and particularly in my country, India, and I'm also a social worker, when I see the mass avalanche of destruction all around, it makes me a little unwavered in the path of spirituality. So I would like to know from you, how does one keep the nishta, the steadiness, when you face situations as these? And how do you still forge ahead and keep yourself, to keep yourself looking into the goal of attaining moksha?
Well, this is described in many places, even in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks about the person's prajna or wisdom. That even he gets criticism, even he feels suffering, even if he sees suffering all around him, or even if there's joyous situation around him, he is indifferent to everything. So he gets a little detached from everything in this world because he understands there's a higher purpose for life. He understands he's not the body, he's the Atma or the soul. He understands he has a relationship with Krishna, etc. So the externals don't confuse him or bewilder him as they would for normal people. So normally, people in this world get very disturbed by everything in this world because they identify themselves with their material bodies. And then the material bodies are attached to other bodies, etc. So, and then somebody dies or somebody gets sick, and then they get very disturbed. So yes, that's true. But if we understand that we're not the body at all, then we can be a little distant from all of that and understand that this is happening in the material world. Everyone has their activities, everyone's getting their karmas, etc. And certainly it's not good, but ultimately we're beyond the body, we are Atma. So the Atma is not affected by anything that happens to the body. So even if the body perishes, the Atma does not die. It's eternal. And he will get another chance in another body again. So definitely, of course, we don't like people see people dying, but it's not the end. They continue into the future because they are Atma. So we have that consolation. But when we understand we're not the body, we're the soul.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you're pointing out that there is also some hint of some plan of the Lord. What plan of the Lord we can see in this situation?
Well, that is difficult for us to see. Even the great devotees like Krishna and Bhagavad says, I don't understand what the Lord is doing. Why this big war? Millions of people dying, etc. So it's very difficult sometimes, even for great devotees, to understand what the Lord is doing and how he plans it out. And it may be very surprising when he does. So we don't always know, but if we are devotees, then we have the faith that yes, Krishna knows what is best for us. So he has a greater plan. Ultimately, we'll not understand until we meet Krishna. Then we'll understand, oh, that's why it's like this. Until then, we will not understand.
Yeah.
But even at the beginning stage, if we have faith in the plan of the Lord, then we will not be disturbed or bewildered by all the situations around us.
So both individually for us and for the world, Krishna is always a leader. He's leading to some situation.
Oh yes, yes.
But we can't understand.
Yeah, of course, a lot of it is simply karma. People get what they deserve on a local level, on a big level. So if we mistreat the world, then we get some worldly reactions, one way or the other. It could be the weather, could be the virus, it could be famine, it could be drought, it could be, so many different things could affect us. If we commit enough sinful activities and destroy the earth, then we get a reaction.
Now, what is happening, just like we keep hearing news, somebody died by corona. Now, the death was definitely destined at that moment. It's just that incidentally he has died by corona. Can we take it like that?
Yeah, in one sense, karma is involved. Of course, we can also speed up our karma a little bit by being careless. For instance, you can just walk out on the street, close your eyes, and then get hit by a car. So therefore, we should be a little careful as well. So if we don't take precautions, we can speed up our karma in one sense. And so we have to use our intelligence also to avoid certain situations. So infection is there. We have to avoid the infection area. We have to use our intelligence in so many ways to avoid. Can I say it's all karma, so it doesn't matter. What do I do? I'll just go out and not take precautions. We have to be intelligent.
And the most of the people whomever you talk to, they say some member in the family is infected and some member has died. So it becomes challenging for us to what assurance we give them.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that they have died, but same as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, they actually didn't die. It's only the body that died. So definitely they're not dead, and they're an Atma, and they'll get another body somewhere else. So it's not the end for that particular person. It's only the end for his body and that particular series of karmas. But then in the future, he gets another body and continues. So they have that constellation, at least, that the person is there somewhere in this world, getting born somewhere else.
But then people say India is the most dharmic country. We are attached to the country, and why we are getting more suffering because we are most religious, and why we get maximum suffering.
Well, they were getting the suffering last year so much. It was, I think, it was Britain was getting them, England was getting the suffering, and America was getting the suffering, wasn't it? So it just rotates around in different countries. It's not this is particular pointing out India, but now India is greater. But if you take the total with the population, actually, the number of deaths per population is probably less than America or Brazil. Take the total population of India. So in one sense, maybe it's a little distorted the facts as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. Maharaj, I'll just take a few more questions because you said you also have another engagement.
Yeah, I do actually.
Suhas TS, quickly, you can ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, like they say, we should not read Garuda Purana or we should not hear Garuda Purana. So can you just Garuda Purana?
Who is saying that?
Garuda Purana.
Yeah, but who is saying that you shouldn't read it?
Somebody told that.
Oh, I see.
No, yeah,
No.
someone will be telling.
Oh, I see. I don't know about that. I never heard that.
Sir,
Purana
Prabhuji, I'm
written
not
out
able to
fast.
hear properly.
What's that?
Prabhuji, I'm not able to hear properly.
Yeah. Anyway, the ultimate Purana is Srimad Bhagavatam.
Srimad.
After Vedavyas wrote everything, the Narada Muni says, it's not satisfying. You write one that's points out Krishna and describes Krishna. And this is the conclusion of everything. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the substance of all the scriptures, all the Vedas, the Upanishads, the other Puranas, and the Mahabharata. Right.
Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Like if we read Garuda Purana, we will know in advance, in before, like what should we do, like what we should not do. We will know in advance. So we can read, Prabhuji.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. It tells us about karma and what is the result of different types of activities you get in the future. We can know that.
Sir, this is my first accent, so I'm not able to understand properly, Prabhuji.
What is that?
I'm not able to understand, Prabhuji.
Okay. No problem. I'll explain in the class.
First exposure to this, like.
He said first is hearing you.
First accent, first hearing to this accent abroad. So I'm not able to understand properly.
Okay, no problem. Mataji will explain in the class. Okay. We have taken the recording and the teacher will explain to you again.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Shashi Kumar ji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I have one question. Just a little while ago, you explained, the how much karma is burnt will come to know only when we leave the body, and Yamadhar Maharaj, I will review it, and still a thread remains. So how do we burn this thread also so that everything gets cleaned up? So what is the way we can do that, and how we will know that it has been done? Thank you.
Well, the little pattern that remains generally, if you get prema, then you just give up your body and you go to the spiritual world, and there's no karma there at all, and there's no trace of anything there. You get a spiritual body instead with no karma. So that is therefore the one who's attained prema. Other persons like Ajamil, who chanted accidentally and got his karmas destroyed, they will have to perform the bhakti and come to that level to actually get rid of the last trace of karmas and develop their bhakti to prema. They'll have to do sadhana to do that. So if we still have some little traces of karma, we continue the process of bhakti, and through that, then the last traces go away.
Hare Krishna, Priyadarshini Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I've got a very, very question. We say we do devotion with the intention of going to Goloka Vrindavana. We want to reach Krishna's abode. At the same time, we also say a pure devotee aspires for for devotional service, and he says, birth after birth, please give me your devotional service. And what should we really pray for? And does it mean that we should pray for birth after birth here afterwards and stay steady in Krishna's devotional service, or pray for Goloka Vrindavana? I'm a little bewildered and confused, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Kindly answer.
Yeah. Well, actually, the prayer, the ultimate prayer, is just how we can serve Krishna eternally. We can say birth after birth. Maybe we're assuming we come back to the material world because we're not perfect, and therefore birth after birth, let me serve Krishna. That's the main idea. And other things, going to the spiritual world, getting a spiritual body, etc. These are all things that accompany that. But if we go to the spiritual world but we don't serve Krishna, we don't want that. If we get a spiritual body but we don't serve Krishna, we don't want that also. So the main thing is we want to try to please Krishna at all times. So that is what we call pure bhakti. If we have a desire to do pure bhakti, then whether we have the other things or not, spiritual world or not, it doesn't really matter. So we can continue in this material world. We're not going to complain as long as we can serve Krishna. So that is what pure bhakti is. If we have mixed bhakti, we have other material desires with our bhakti, then we will think, well, I want to serve Krishna, but I also want to get a spiritual body. Plus, I want to go to the spiritual world. Then that's a little bit of a mixture in our bhakti. We don't demand that in our devotional service with the pure bhakti.
Yeah, a little confused actually, no? Then should we really go to aspire, join, go to Goloka, or pray for again birth? And,
well, the prayer is to serve Krishna, and wherever we do it, fine. We don't care.
It's clear, Mataji?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Yes. Little bit quite confused. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Gauri Shyam Prabhu. Unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Bhanu Swami Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. I have a question for the Dibya Yuga. The Dibya Yuga consists of 4 yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta, Dwapar, Kali. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said the Dwapar is double of duration of the Dwapar is double of Kali, of Treta triple of Kali, and Satya Yuga 4 times of Kali Yuga. It is okay, understandable. But when we come to Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 3rd chapter, 14th verse, it is written that after Satya Yuga, Dwapar comes, and after Dwapar, Treta comes, then Kali comes. And when Krishna descends, this may be, however, changed. Treta comes first, Dwapar comes second. So this is little doubt. Which is the sequence of the yugas after Satya Yuga? It is Treta or Dwapar?
Yeah. So the usual thing is Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali, coming in proportions. Like Kali is like 1/4, and then we have 2 quarters and 3 quarters and 4 quarters, like that. That's the usual sequence.
So that how can we answer what we see in Bhagavatam?
Oh, that I don't think anybody's answered that one properly, but I think maybe it's a mistake there in the translation.
बाबू कोई और क्वेश्चन है?
बस यही सवाल था कि वो भागवतम में it is reverse, so it is very difficult to explain to the audience that how it is changed, because the Dwapar is double the time of Kali and Treta is triple the time of Kali. And if the Dwapar comes after Satya Yuga, How can we explain this? Because the time period changes. This is a little confusing to explain it to the audience.
Yes. So that's why I said that generally it's the other way around. It's Sata, Treta, Dwarpa, Kali. That's the standard way in which the yugas are done. So probably it's because of the word, I think, paryaya is used, which can mean reversal, but also means succession. So therefore, probably that got mixed up a little bit. And that's how it came up like that.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Vivek.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So my question is actually pertaining to myself. So I wake up in the morning, I do around 4 rounds, and then whole day I keep thinking that, yes, I need to move to different rounds and do more. But because of multiple things that keeps happening, because the work or because of the household work, not getting time. So what stage I'm into, the stages that you have explained, starting from the seed to the activity, to the anishta, to the nishta, and how can I move from one stage to another stage?
Well, if you can remain steady at this with no difficulty, whatever number of rounds you're chanting, etc., fine, then this is called nishta. And you're not getting too much disturbance from unnecessary material desires. So what you can do a sufficient amount of devotional service in a comfortable way with no disturbance. And we call that nishta.
Okay. So how can then I move from nishta to what is the other stage?
Ruchi. Then you continue with this process of cultivating the bhakti and association with devotees, and then you get more and more taste for Krishna, more enthusiasm for serving Krishna.
Great. Understood. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Pramodji.
Hare Krishna, Swamiji. My question is, I want to know about Prarabdha.
About?
Prarabdha.
Prabdha karmas, yeah. Generally, they cannot be destroyed, but the prabdha karma is the karmas of this lifetime. You get a body when you're born, that's the prabdha karma. You die at a certain point, that's a karma. Whatever happens in this lifetime, a lot of it is fixed karmas, whatever, that's your prabdha karma. You also have aparabdha karmas. They're not even a period that you committed the act, you're going to get the result, but not in this lifetime. Maybe next lifetime, next lifetime, whatever. So there's a storehouse of karmas to get you also. So that's called the aparabdha karmas. So anyway, they're all destroyed by the process of bhakti. The aparabdha and the prarabdha is also destroyed. So therefore, the karmas of this lifetime get destroyed by the process of bhakti as well as the aparabdha. But because we do have a material body, that is not completely destroyed.
Question मुझे थोड़ा अच्छा नहीं लगा पूछता. दूसरा question जो मेरे दिमाग में.
हाँ. Yes, Bhanu Maharaj, you continue.
What is that?
You continue. Oh,
Yeah.
somebody's mic was on. I switched.
Oh, I was talking about the prarabdha karmas. So the prarabdha karmas are also destroyed by bhakti. They're not destroyed by jnana or yoga or karma yoga, but bhakti will destroy even the prarabdha karmas. But generally, the body remains, so that prarabdha karma is not destroyed. And as I said, there's a little pattern that goes on because of that body. But in general, the prarabdha karmas also get destroyed by the process.
Okay, Pramodji. Maharaj, should we stop now because it will go on and it will be tightened for your second program? Or you want me to finish 4 more people? Hare Krishna, Shubham.
Krishna.
I can't hear anything.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Shubham.
Sir, my question
Loudly.
is that we have 18 Puranas, and in all that, different gods are told to be supreme. So I am confused in all that. What is the reality?
18 Puranas, and then what?
In Puranas, different gods, like in Surya Purana, Surya Dev is told to
Oh,
be supreme
okay,
god.
yeah.
Like-
So 8 different Puranas describe different deities and praise them, etc.
Yes,
But generally, there's 3 divisions. There's 6 Puranas in which Shiva is prominent. That's called the Tamasic Puranas because Shiva's in charge of Tamagun.
yeah.
6 Puranas are called the Rajasic Puranas. Rajaguna means creation. So, and Brahma is largely glorified in those.
Yeah.
And then there's 6 Puranas in Sattva called Sattvic Puranas, where Vishnu is mainly glorified, and Bhagavatam is also in that group. So different deities are glorified in order to that people get faith at least in something, and they worship some bona fide authorized devata or whatever. But according to gunas, so people in Tamagun get attracted to Shiva, people in Rajagun get attracted to Brahma, people in Sattva get attracted to Vishnu. So let them, according to their gunas, worship different deities. However, as we see from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also criticizes that whole thing, says, don't worship the devatas, just worship me. So the recommendation of Bhagavatam is the same. Though there are many deities to be worshipped, ultimately, we should just worship, in Kali Yuga especially, we should just worship Krishna. This is the conclusion of Vasudeva after writing all the Puranas. And he did that because he got the advice of Narada Muni, who told him, everyone's going to get confused because everybody's going to start worshiping different deities. So just have one object of worship, because you tell everybody to worship Krishna, because he can satisfy everybody. So therefore, Bhagavatam recommends Krishna as the worship. And this is the summary of all the Puranas.
Okay, sir. One more question I have. That I am a student. So in Bhagavad Gita, it has been written that one should perform work without any, you can say, want of any result. So how can we do work without setting any target?
Yes. Well, when it says work without attachment, Nishkama Karma Yoga, that means we work, but we're not aspiring to get enjoyment for ourselves or people related to us. So in other words, we try to be selfless. We're doing these activities simply because scripture tells me to do it. May not be able to completely do it like that, but we try as much as possible.
Means we have to set the target, but don't expect that what it will be.
Yeah, we don't claim it as our enjoyment. That's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Kumkum.
Ranga Krishna.
Hare Krishna Kumkum. Speaker. Hare Krishna Maharaj, I think we stop at this because your next program is about to start.
Yeah, 11:30, I got my other program.
Yes.
Okay, so we can end here then.
Yes, Maharaj, we'll continue later.
Okay.
Please bless all of us. There are the devotees here I wanted to introduce. In fact, my father today asked you a question, and he has visited Japan for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And he always talks about Japan. He loves that country, and very keen to talk to you. Anyway, here is the devotees in the temple, and it's going very nice. Maharaj, as a small report to you, we finished 13 batches, almost to wind up now. And these are the people who are chanting 16 rounds. So we gave only them the privilege to come because the room is limited. So they all came to, we are keeping it every Sunday, some kind of encouragement for them. So thank you very much, Maharaj. For
There's
coming.
about 300 people here chanting 16 rounds.
Yeah, these are all 16.
Okay.
600 had registered, but 300 turned up because of language issues. They are in 7 languages teaching: Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, Tamil.
Oh, okay.
Mostly English people. But we have, and then things are going well.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So we can continue the service.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vancha. Bhanu Maharaj ki. His Holiness Bhanu Maharaj ki. Hare Krishna. Maharaj told me to finish up the remaining questions. Yes, Kumkum ji, आपका क्या प्रश्न था?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji. It was a beautiful lecture, no? Huh?
Yes, really, very beautiful. Very beautiful.
So he did not put the video on. He's traveling always. He's a world traveler, and he's in Australia presently. And
Okay.
I think one of the most learned person in his just on one topic, devotion, how much he developed. Just yes.
In India, where is he based, Prabhuji?
Actually, he is based in India, Chennai, but presently he's not in Chennai. He's in Australia since last 1 year.
Right.
Went there because of Corona. Yes. Yeah. What is your question, Mataji?
Prabhuji, my question is, it is repeatedly said that, we should not really grieve at the death of a loved one because the soul is eternal and the soul will move on. But doesn't death also mean that our association with that particular soul, which was in that body, also ends? And
Yes.
the grief is natural, and the grief is natural because we know that the soul is eternal, but we now will not be interacting with that particular soul.
Yeah.
So isn't grief natural for us?
See, we have to tolerate what can be done. See, if it is on the spiritual platform, there is nothing wrong. Like Mother Yashoda always cried because Krishna never went back to Vrindavan, but that is not a pain, that was ecstasy. So if there is a spiritual separation, like even devotees, when Acharya Prabhupada left the world, they almost died. But that was spiritual ecstasy. Externally, it is pain. Internally, because meditation is on a pure devotee, meditation on Krishna. That is wonderful. Okay? So therefore, we should spiritualize our relationship. You put in the house Krishna in the center, then your husband is somebody who helped you to serve Krishna. When you remember in that way, that will always, Krishna will be remembered when you're remembering your husband. You understand? Correct? If it is material, then, and another thing is that spiritual relationship will not be broken. In next life, you will be husband and wife if it is spiritual. And in spiritual, when you go, again, you will live together. Because what's the reason for Krishna? Krishna never breaks spiritual relation. Like guru-disciple relationship is never broken. There is no need to break. Arjuna is always with Krishna in all the leelas. Because there is no need to break spiritual relationship. But material relationship, it's just like a pieces of grass together on water. When it, the water goes, the pieces of grass separate. So we keep meeting and separating so many people. So if it is material relationship, then we can do nothing. We just have to tolerate. If it is spiritual, better make it spiritual. But even if you pain, you'll remember, my husband was such a nice devotee. That will make you remember Krishna. So that will be very sweet. Correct?
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
But to be true, we are not pure devotees and there is a great pain. What can be done? Therefore, Krishna immediately after telling Dehinasmin Yatha Dehe Shloka in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Matara Sparshastra Kaunteya, tolerate. Arjuna can say to Krishna, okay, you are telling me my grandfather, my guru, is not the body, the spirit, soul, but when they die in front of me, I feel pain. So Krishna said, yes, what can you do? Tolerate. You have to tolerate. See, it is Krishna's arrangement and the exam given by Krishna. We have to accept it as for our own purification and tolerate and let the purification happen. Krishna, I accept it. When Krishna does something wonderful, we celebrate. No, in house there is a child birth, we all celebrate. When somebody Krishna takes away, that also time. Thank you, Krishna. I know Krishna, it is painful, but I accept it. And when you do like that, you become very dear to Krishna. Tatyankampama sutukshimana munjana evatmikatam vipakam. Hridavag bobovi vidadam namaste jivena yoputi mukti padesadayamak. Such a person who one takes even adversity as the blessing of Krishna, he is going back to Krishna. It is right. Okay, so when we have a blessing, we take it as a good thing as a blessing of Krishna. Bad thing, also blessing of Krishna. Then Krishna says, oh, so because Krishna doesn't do anything wrong. Okay, everything he does perfectly. He has taken that soul to some other situation to continue spiritual development. Krishna don't take any mistake, but we take as pain. Then we are not able to understand Krishna's wonder. When Krishna lifts a mountain, he is wonderful. When somebody dies also, Krishna is still wonderful. So even though it's paining the heart, oh Krishna, you are wonderful. Then Krishna said, okay, my God, such a sweet devotee, isn't it?
Thank
So
you,
any
Prabhuji. Thank you. So wonderfully explained.
Krishna and tolerate. What we can, true, it pains miserably. Tolerate. What can be done? Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Puja Mataji.
Pranam Guru Maharaj.
You enjoyed hearing our sannyasi? How learned he is.
Yeah, it was a beautiful session.
He had a presentation. He always makes a presentation because the signal was weak. He did not put video and presentation on because in the beginning he noticed the character funk going. But still, he explained just audio. The voice is so pleasing, so purifying. Yes. What is your?
Yeah, Pranam Guru Maharaj. I really enjoyed today's session, and the Guru Maharaj did explain the entire process very beautifully. I am a believer in Krishna, and I have recently started my 16 rounds of chanting. And I also try to spend some time every day in hearing the divine scriptures or reading about it. But whenever I hear or do the chanting, I feel very happy and I'm blissful. But as soon as I get back to my own daily work and routine, I think that bliss is lost, and I do not feel happy. I do not feel loved. In fact, I feel the very opposite of it. I feel very sad, abandoned. So, and I do understand that in the process, I'm still at the stage of Anishtha, but will it still go through?
Yeah. No, we have to patient. Usaha. Rupa Goswami says, Usaha Nishaya Dhairya. We have to have what's enthusiasm in spiritual life. We should have confidence because we are following a process given by Acharya, Guru Parampara, and have patience. Everything takes time. The woman become pregnant. Suppose a woman become pregnant. I don't have child. Wait 9 months it takes. So everything takes time. You put a seed of mango on the ground 5 years before it gives a fruit. You have to be patient. So it is needed to be patient and practice spiritual life, and also advancing, not advancing. Always take as direction from the devotees. Suppose you're taking a medicine, the temperature is not coming down. Immediately you go to doctor. Doctor, what happened? 15 days your medicine should have worked. Generally we take antibiotics. Nothing is happening. My fever is still 103. So we have a right to go back to the doctor and check up. So we can check up with the devotees. If there any mistake I'm making, then they will explain the process again. Then you know, okay, here maybe I'm making a mistake. Okay? So you continue the process. Everything takes time. Just like a fan, when you switch off the fan, still keeps moving. So our attraction in the metal world doesn't go away, and that actually becomes kind of an anchor which doesn't allow us to move. Generally, I feel people go through one stage when the sadhana they're doing whole day, they're thinking about material life. That's the beginning stage. And even sadhana, they're thinking about material life. But as the sadhana grows better and better, and purification happens, then through whole day, they're thinking about what they did in sadhana. See, the 2 hours of sadhana, you're chanting 16 down. Then 22 hours, you're doing other activities. In the beginning stage, japa time also, you're thinking about the whole day. But as the sadhana improves, whole day, you're thinking about japa. Today, the japa was so nice. I really enjoyed it. Just like you heard him, you say it was so nice. We heard a nice advanced sannyasi, correct? We all heard him. So it was very pleasurable. So that 45 minutes, you can remember whole day, isn't it? So like that. Slowly it reverses, but it takes time. Anything else to add up, Puja Mataji?
No, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vinay ji, Chakravarti.
Sir, namaste.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I am started.
Maharaj had another appointment at 11:30. So therefore, he had to go away. So if I can, I'll try to answer the question. Yeah, tell me.
Namaste Prabhuji. I am started 16 rounds from last 15 days. Now I am getting 16 rounds completing in whole day, and I am starting morning session. I will do 4 to 8, and afternoon 4 to 8. Like that, I am doing. So how we know we are getting in bhakti marga?
Today he told us that was the whole class. Very nice. Not topic was wonderful. How do you know
Topic
advanced?
was wonderful.
So see, that is okay. You can always break up. Not that you have to do together. It is always the best early morning. But even if it's a difficult day, you can break up. That's not a problem. So you have to see the two things which are a pointer for advancing in spiritual life is vairagya, and as more we are advancing, more our vairagya should develop, more attraction to Krishna should develop. So more you're feeling attached to Krishna, more you're feeling distaste for material enjoyment. These two things show that I am actually advancing.
And one more thing, Guruji. I thought I have to read books, but I am not able to do that one. What we have to do?
Don't worry, when you're in the course, so there are examinations, no? So you have to read for that, forced to read. When I was told to somebody, one more senior devotee, after 3-4 years ago, I said that I'm not finding any time to read. He said, start teaching the books, you'll have forced to read. So when you're not reading, you get forced to read. Suppose we have the level 1, level 2, everywhere there are book reading. And today was the orientation of those who will take to Bhakti Shastri, be ready. There's a lot of academic work every week. Today we're just getting inspired and encouraged how spiritual life is wonderful. When you get down to studying Bhagavad Gita, there is a huge assignment every week. We will be studying one chapter 1 month, one chapter a month, that's all. But there is a huge amount of work. You have to write so many essays on different topics of the first chapter, second chapter. Okay, na? So you will be forced to read.
Okay. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Ajit Tiwari.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, first of all, very nice session conducted by you and the Guruji from Japan. Really enjoyed. Thanks. Lots of blessings to all of you. And, we are very, very grateful to ISKCON that, you are providing this kind of spiritual knowledge to us completely free of cost. And, we are very lucky. We feel very lucky to be associated with you. I always encourage my family members to join ISKCON as much as possible. Prabhuji, I have few questions. If you could allow me to ask. Yeah. Prabhuji, I am actually trying to do 64 rounds every day, but many days I do. Some of the days I do, but not every day I'm able to do it because of your time issues and all that. And also when the day I'm doing 64 round, I'm not able to read Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavad because entire time is like consumed in doing 64 round, because it takes almost 5 to 6 hours to complete 64 rounds. So I'm a bit confused, like when I'm doing 64 rounds, I'm not able to read scriptures. And when I'm doing 16 rounds, then yeah, I'm able to find time to read the scriptures. So how do I manage the balance?
See, the devotees, they love different aspects of devotion service. Some devotees love to chant, then chant. Don't worry, as you chant, mind becomes, you're attracted to chanting, the mind becomes very calm, you feel so much happy. Time, don't worry, time, there's a lot of time there. Lot of time is there. Let the mind become calm. Time will be, Krishna will show you more ways to save time. Okay? Don't worry. Time will come. Now you chant. Feel like chanting, chant. Chanting is what do you like? Reading and chant, you like chanting, just chant. Chanting is so
But
much.
I also like to read Bhagavatam. It's very interesting things.
Automatically come. No? Why force? Automatically it will come. Just like
Prabhuji, just one small more question. Actually, I find many other people not following ISKCON in India itself. And, sometimes I find on social media that, they are even not, telling good things about ISKCON. They, I feel very bad about it. I want to tell them that, what you're doing is absolutely incorrect. ISKCON is really doing great job. They are not like they don't want to follow four principles. They say it is in our religion, we are not forced to leave meat eating, we are not forced to leave illicit sex, but we also could go to church and masjid, and we can do multiple marriages. Everything is allowed in our dharma, but in your dharma it is very strict. Ultimately everyone is, we are also, when we go to masjid we follow God, you are also following God.
You don't need to bother. See what happens. First, you should don't worry about other people. You should firm yourself up. Correct? Just like we are taking the classes, open classes. Every time we get so many kind of questions. Correct? We are taking. But just therefore, stay sometime. Just like you're wonderfully chanting, continue. But let yourself be in full of happiness and nectar. Then you take on them. If you like, when I went to started Krishna consciousness, I ended up fighting with the whole hostel. I still remember those days. So, and I realized it was not good because neither I used to fight with them. I used to speak. It took me some, even when I became a devotee and I used to go out to meet public, I used to end up in fight. Then it took me some time to understand, actually, we should know when to speak, how much to speak when you are preaching. Correct? Otherwise, certain times better to be silent. So in a different forums, you have to see when somebody is submissive, then we speak. Somebody is not, just like first chapter, Krishna did not speak. One reason is he's a good listener. Other reason, Arjuna was not a mood to be spoken at that time. He was blabbering, blah, 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 blah. And he was speaking without uncontrol. So Krishna said, okay, speak. So let them speak, be silent. When you get an opportunity and somebody is submissive, you should speak. Tarka apratishtaha. Just by argument, nothing can establish. Unless somebody is respectful to you, you speak. What's going to be the use? There is no use. So true, those who are very convinced sometimes can take on to see that these people are disturbing the image, and we can take on. But generally it is immaterial because ISKCON has its own huge network and we are, Krishna's grace, not doing bad. We are doing well. Correct? They're all here and there. People make even YouTube videos and all, just ignore them. We just do our work. They say in spiritual life, we should respect and love the Lord, make friendship with the devotees, and to the innocent people be merciful, and those who are envious, just ignore. These are basically envious people. We can just ignore them. Better to ignore, but in case there is something they are become very prominent and they're damaging, we take on them. But then not everybody should get into that because they get disturbed. Correct? Anna? Okay. Best is to ignore unless it has become some prominent thing. But I don't know of something very prominent presently. ISKCON has a good image. There is nothing we can ignore. Okay. Tiwari ji, then yeah, Divya Rukmini Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, such a wonderful session, Prabhu. Very thanks, but little bit disturbance is there. That is the main issue. Rest everything is okay. So I have. Can you please explain again that regarding the Anishta? Actually, he showed some slides. Is it?
Presentation. What happened? He had a presentation. He always makes a presentation. That is his nature. He's famous for it. And he always makes a presentation. But today his signal was weak. He noticed that. And because it noticed that, immediately what did he do? He, he disconnected his video, and then he did an audio.
Still, it's a fine, Prabhu. We are. It's a very blessing class. It's very nice. See, I heard. Can you please explain regarding this Anishta? Because I have his slide. I just took the.
I heard for the first time. You're telling me. I'm also learning. I'm a student. He's on a level of. I'm learning.
He showed some. This one slides. I have the picture of the slides. It's like showing some false confidence. That is ulsaha. Is it like ulsaha nishya? Is it regarding that one?
Not connected. It's a different analysis. False confidence because the child learns A and he goes home. I'm so proud I learned A. Father is laughing. He just in the beginning today. He is so proud he learned A. So it's like that spiritual life. We learned some 1 month, Rahul. I'm very proud. So what are actually we're on nursery students spiritual life. We don't even know what is spiritual life. But we become so proud because we learn some basic things and we get carried by the waves he was telling, no?
Yeah, Prabhu. Yeah.
So sometimes in spiritual life we get some honor, sometimes there is no honor. The devotee should be totally indifferent to that. Just like Lord Rama, next day he was becoming the emperor. The father said, no, you go to the forest. When you go to the forest, there is no honor. When he's the emperor, there is honor. He's indifferent. Totally indifferent. The Prabhupada Guru came out to spread the mission. He's sitting in Vrindavan. He was a big businessman. And to fulfill Guru's order, sitting in Vrindavan in a small room. He's totally immaterial to all these things. He just wants to fulfill Guru's mission. And then later he became the world Guru, Jagat Acharya, with thousands of disciples and millions of well-wishers. Same person. You see in Vrindavan, he's meeting those people and very nice photos are there. He's laughing with them as if he's one of them. Not even one thing gone into his head that he has become world Acharya. So we should be indifferent to the thing. Very nice. Anishtha, man, we become swayed away by the way. Very nice.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thanks.
So other people have already asked question, I think. So we close today. Geeta Mataji, the first did not answer question. Yes, Geeta Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I think we close then. I hope you all enjoyed. Now, this was today overall. I told you the orientation of Bhakti Shastri, just giving you a sense. There is a huge progress we have to make in spiritual life. It will become serious. Till now, we had people chanting 1 round, 2 round, 4 round. This is the people who are chanting 16 round. We are opening a special forum now. I'll try to have a special lecture every Sunday at 10 o'clock. And this will very soon lead to our Bhakti Shastri course, where we'll do a thorough study of Bhagavad Gita, word by word. It's a 1-year course. So you're getting warm-up done. So you had one sannyasi visiting, and I'll also try to get some more guests so that you all feel encouraged, inspired, and we go into deep study of Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna. Okay, and those people are in different languages or English, this will be convenient because most of the guest lectures are in English. But your own teachers will have the recording and they will further explain to you systematically. This is our plan. Okay? So do not worry those who are in Kannada and they are in Hindi. उसमें कोई फिक्र करने की जरूरत नहीं है. हम लोग आपको ये सब क्लासेस को अपना लैंग्वेज में दोबारा से ट्रांसलेट करके समझाएंगे. Okay.
Prabhuji, can you hear me? 1 second. Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my mic was not working when you asked me. I would like to thank you for arranging such a wonderful session. It was very insightful, and I think such lectures will help us more. And I would love to be a part of this such session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm reporting to him in his cause. He is my in charge.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Such an in charge person.
It was wonderful. I have no words to express, but I thoroughly enjoyed and learned a lot.
Correct. Yeah. Just to hearing was purifying, you know.
Yes, Prabhuji. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Pancha kalpatarubhascha kripasindhavevacha patitana pavanebhyo Vaishnava namo namanand koti Vaishnava ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you everybody for joining us. I hope such guest lectures continue and you all become inspired, encouraged and become wonderful.